We wanted to kick things off with a little poll to learn more about who is joined us on the call today and your experiences with Community Voice. We appreciate there's some people on the call today who are longtime Community Voice members, new members, have maybe taken surveys, appointed committees, or maybe here to learn more about Community Voice and consider signing up. Okay. I think there's a way to share is there a way to share the results of the poll with everyone? Awesome. So looks like 46% of our attendees today who voted are actually Community Voice members. Most of you have taken a survey. A few of you served on a committee, and a few are actually here to learn more. So welcome, and we hope you enjoy learning about Community Voice and the first 10 years. So with that, I am excited to start today's town hall with a little bit about where Community Voice is today, including information about how we've grown and how many of you on the call today have contributed to some of our hundreds of projects over the years. Your participation has helped the CF Foundation and researchers to hear firsthand from the CF community in terms of both breadth of expertise from many people through projects like surveys, and also depth of community experience through things that are more conversation-based, like focus groups, one-on-one interviews, or as part of advisory committees and working groups like you'll hear about later today. So who is a part of Community Voice? As you'll see on the next slide, and as many of you know, we are a program primarily for people with CF and their family members. Since the program began in late 2014, we've seen steady growth over time, with many members staying involved since the beginning and new people joining along the way. This has been great for balancing input from longtime members with fresh voices. In 2024, we also celebrated another exciting milestone. In addition to turning 10, Community Voice actually welcomed its 2000th active member. On the next slide, you can see that Community Voice today includes membership from all 50 US states, plus a few dozen members from Canada and other countries. Most of our opportunities are currently for US-based members, but in 2024 and 2025, we collaborated with CF Canada Elevate, their program similar to Community Voice, on 2 surveys that you might have taken. The percent of Community Voice membership that is made up of people with CF has grown over time to about 45% of our members. We've also seen growth in the number of caregivers, which is great because it helps researchers and the foundation understand both caregiver experiences and experiences of children under 18 who are not yet eligible for our projects on their own. We've also experienced growth in membership among people representing a range of backgrounds and experiences, including those representing different racial and ethnic identities, modulator statuses, and transplant statuses. Another exciting part of the Community Voice story is how much more complete the big picture of what CF looks like today is becoming as more people join. We want Community Voice to be every bit as diverse as the CF community, and have worked to reach people from communities that are currently underrepresented in our program. We can compare the demographics of Community Voice members who live in the United States to those in the patient registry to see how our program population is similar to or different from those diagnosed with CF. While we're getting closer to reaching balanced representation based on race and ethnicity, 2 areas where we have a real need for growth is among men with CF and young adults, so people aged 18 to 30. For example, men with CF represent a little over half of the patient registry population, yet they only represent 23% of Community Voice members. In the first 10 years, Community Voice members participated in more than 600 projects. On the next slide, you'll see how that balanced out over time. This includes over 180 surveys and 70 focus group opportunities. In the last 5 years alone, Community Voice has recruited for committees more than 90 times, with more than 450 community members during that time joining and serving on committees. So one of the really great things about Community Voice is how this work and your contributions to it have built on itself over time. As you'll hear over the next few minutes, the story of this last decade is how iterative and thoughtful community input has driven progress. So with that, I will hand it off to Christina to introduce herself and share the legacy of the impact that you've had through Community Voice.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. I am so excited to get to be here today to talk to you about the last decade of the Community Voice program and how much of an impact you all have had on the work of the CF Foundation and our ability to really help shape and improve the lives of people with CF. So I'm going to cover just a snapshot of the work that has been done and just want to give you a sense of what it means when you all share your voice with us and how that translates into real action. So, taking a step back in our time machine and thinking about where we were when this program was started. So, back in 2014, this was a time shortly after the very first CFTR modulator had been approved. That was Kaleido. And it was also a time in our history where we just saw more adults with CF than the pediatric population, which was fantastic. This means that more and more people are living into an adulthood. It was also a time within the CF Foundation where we were launching our first new strategic planning effort. And one of the key things that we realized was it was really critical for us to be hearing from the community to understand the evolving needs that they had and make sure that we were able to address those. And we wanted to do this in partnership with the community. So we created this, what was then called the Adult and Family Advisors, not the catchiest name, but we wanted a group of people that could advise us. And so we asked people to join and then recruited from there for things like the Adult Advisory Committee, the several research advisory groups, and then also for our CF Care Guidelines committees. Since that time, we've had community members serve on over 13 new clinical care guidelines, which were developed in partnership with clinicians and community members. We also, through input from community and particularly groups like the AF or the Adult Advisory Council, created programming like CF Peer Connect, which has made over 1,200 launches, community conferences, which have served over 900 people, and the Impact Grants program, which has funded over 50 projects. So all of that came from early input, really helping shape the direction that the foundation was heading to meet the evolving needs of our community. We also realized, though, in those early years, there's a lot of untapped potential and a need to really hear from the broad community and understand the different experiences that people were having. We were realizing that really no CF journey is the same. And we needed to hear from as many of the members of our community as possible so we could really address the diverse needs that the community has. So that at that time around 2017, we rebranded with input from the community to become Community Voice and really highlight how important it is that we hear from our full community in informing our work. We also did what was the very first ever research prioritization survey. And in this survey, based on early input from the community on what was important to them, we asked community members to rank what their top research priorities were. This really kicked off what has now been a evolving way of working with the community. And I'm just going to highlight a few of the big projects that have happened over the last 8 or so years that have really shaped the direction we're heading as an organization. So kicking this all off in 2017 with this first research prioritization survey, one of the things that we learned was that just 54% of the research we were funding through our grants program to researchers really met those top 10 priorities of the community. And so, as a result of this, and you'll get to hear a little bit from Dara Riva in a little bit on our panel, but we added those research priorities as areas of encouragement to the research community to say, this is the direction we need to head. This is what's important to people that are living with CF. We also began adding community members as grant reviewers, which helped us stay focused on the needs of the community. By 2019, we increased the number of projects that aligned with the community priorities to 84%. And by 2023, we're at 95% of the research we funded through our research grants aligning with community priorities, which is just fantastic and goes to show how critical your voice is. From there, I'm going to walk through some of the other big examples of how we've iteratively built on your input, on your voices to really drive direction and inform the work that we're doing. So the two top priorities that came out of that research prioritization survey were infection and GI. And so we dug in quickly on those areas. The STOP program, which has been a series of I think to date, around 5 different studies, really focusing on standardizing how we treat pulmonary exacerbations and new infections was created. The Infection Research Initiative was launched, which included members of our community to help advise, and that has provided over $100 million in funding towards CF research on new infections. And then the Galaxy study was one of our first GI studies ever that really focused on what are the needs for the CF community related to GI symptoms. We also have heard that um, health insurance, the cost of CF care, navigating the healthcare system, and many other challenges were really high priority areas from the community. And so in 2018 and 2019, we really wanted to better understand the experiences of our community in order to inform our work and to help inform our advocacy efforts to policymakers. So we did our first ever health insurance survey. One of the key things that we learned there was that several people in the CF community, I think it was like around 33% of people at that time in the CF community were facing food insecurity. And so one of the direct results of that was to launch efforts to help understand and address food insecurity in the CF community. We also understood there's a lot of challenges in navigating the CF and understanding what health insurance plans would be best for people. So we created a lot of resources, which again, in our panel following up with this presentation, you'll get to hear from Karen, who does a lot of great work in this area. During the COVID years, we did a lot of deep dive into better understanding the health-related social needs members of in our community have, and have built out a lot of toolkits for clinicians to help members within or patients within their clinics to best navigate resources for themselves and also provide direct resources for community members. This work continues to build. In 2024, we did another large survey called the Cost CF Survey. That data is used to help inform the direction that we go, and again, to help have conversations with policymakers that are making decisions around access to care, as we really want to continue to advocate for everybody with CF to have access to high quality care. So continuing on, going back to some of our research area focuses, another one of the topics that emerged in that research prioritization survey, while it was a smaller number of people, but for those affected, it was a very high priority, was around CF-related diabetes, or CFRD. So again, we wanted to dig deeper and really understand the nuanced needs and experiences of people that are living with CFRD. And so we did focus groups and we did a survey to understand the priorities. One of the key things we heard right away was how big of a difference it makes having an endocrinologist that understands the difference between CF-related diabetes and type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So one of the first things that we did was make sure that we are creating programs to help educate endocrinologists and train them in CF-related diabetes. And then from that work, we've been able to build out more experts in this space. And I'm really excited to share that there's a couple of big studies that launched in the last year or so. First is the Spectrum study, and the second is the Bionic Pancreas study, which I just think is so cool and really provides huge potential in transforming the way we treat CF-related diabetes. And then moving along to mental health, again, another area that has continued to rise in priority, and we saw early on, but it has continued to build as we've listened to the community through other channels. So in 2020, we did our first ever mental health prioritization survey. And, we saw in that a lot of needs around anxiety and depression within the CF community. But also, one of the things that emerged in that space was concerns around how new CFTR treatments like modulators are have an impact on mental health and other areas of well-being. So one of the things that we followed up from there was what was called the WellME study, and this stood for Wellness and the Modulator Era. We really wanted to look and hear from those that are living with CF and um, um, what their experiences were with modulators and how it impacted well-being, whether good or bad, or somewhere in the middle. And so one of the things that we heard from there was, again, a small contingent of our community really seeing concerns with mental health impacts following modulator therapy. And so one of the studies that I'm really excited to share about is the the retrial study, which was again recently started up and really looking at what is the impact of the new modulator therapy that was just approved, Liftrec, and how does that impact mental health and other areas. We also have used all of this information to inform some of the key groups in order to expand knowledge gaps that we have related to mental health in the CF community, and also forming research groups that really are focused on bringing together the experts in this field to prioritize research and address it in a cohesive way to best meet the needs of our CF community in a planned and really rapid way. So again, the impact that you have, even with it's filling out short surveys, has tremendous impact on the research we're conducting and the direction that we're headed as an organization. And just to wrap it up with some of the recent projects, as I'm sure all on this call are aware, CF does affect everybody differently. And there have been a lot of changes with new therapies in the last several years. And we're seeing that needs in the care model may be evolving. And so some of the recent projects that we've done is a survey to understand what people's needs were related to care. And that went out to both community members, people within community voice, as well as clinicians, and has led to things like a new care model position paper and really helping us think about what does the care model of the future need to look like to address the needs of everybody with CF. And we also recently conducted a long-term strategic planning survey that will inform the foundation's next 5-year strategic plan. And so I hope you can see from all of the other projects that I presented and the impact that they've had, that your voice continues to shape the direction of the work that we're doing and really help guide us so that we're laser focused on the key priorities and needs of our community. And every single voice is critical to that. So I am going to just wrap up here and a quick call out, because there are several of these projects that I talked about that are actually studies that are currently recruiting people with CF to participate in them. So I want to give a quick shout out to where you can learn more about the research that we fund. If you go to cff.org/finder, you can find our clinical trial finder and see a lot of projects that are have had community input through community voice to help shape that research. And you can learn more about that there. So I had to give a shout out for that before I turn it over to our fabulous panel. And let's see, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Leah, who is going to lead our panel and I think help introduce all of our fabulous guests. And again, I just hope you can see that your voice by participating in Community Voice is so meaningful. And we're so grateful to all of you who are participating. And we hope for those of you who are new and looking to learn more, that this inspires you to get involved. So thank you, Leah, and thanks to the panel for being here.
Thanks so much, Christina. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. My name is Leah Ritchie, and I'm a Community Engagement Project Lead here at the CF Foundation. I'm so proud to work with this Community Voice team. These folks are amazing, and I'm thrilled to be here this evening with 2 other CF Foundation staff members and 2 of our fantastic Community Voice members as well. And today we're going to hear about their experiences working as partners to improve CF research and care programs. So let's start with introductions. As you come in, as my panelists come in, please tell us your name, how long you have been with or worked with Community Voice, and what area of work you support. And I'll start with Will. Would you start us off?
Yep. Hello, everyone. Will Corcoran. It's great to meet you. I'm a 28-year-old CF patient. I've been a Community Voice member since 2017, so 8 years or so. And yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have been placed on different committees and things at the foundation due to my involvement with Community Voice, including Adult Advisory Council and more recently the Clinical Research Executive Committee.
Well, thanks, Will. Next, Michelle.
Hey everybody, I'm Michelle Bowers. I am the mom of a kiddo with cystic fibrosis. I've been a community voice member since 2022, and I, like Will, have really been fortunate to be a part of several different projects. Most recently, I've been a part of the Health Equity Team Science Award Committee, as well as the Financial Wellness group and work group, and then also the community review group. So it's been a really exciting experience, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
We're glad to have you. Next, we have Dara.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dara Riva. I'm the Senior Director of the Clinical Research Programs here at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I joined the foundation in 2017, but my work at the foundation started much earlier. I actually was, I think, one of the first members of Community Voice in 2015. I have two children with cystic fibrosis. Maximilian just turned 16, and Penelope turns 14 tomorrow. So thank you for having me tonight.
Dara, thanks for being here on birthday eve, too. And finally, Karen.
Hi, everyone. It's really wonderful to be with you all tonight. I've worked for the CF Foundation for a little over 10 years now, and my current role really focuses on that interconnectedness of the cost of life with CF, right? This idea of you have to navigate your health insurance, you have to pay for the CF care where that health insurance leaves off, and then there's the rest of life, right? Paying for food, housing, transportation, all those things that bring you joy or that you plan for. And the point being is it all adds up, right? So it's really been a distinct privilege within that decade with the foundation to work with members of Community Voice, in particular on that work. So thanks so much for the opportunity to be here.
These are our panelists for this evening, and the theme of our conversation today is the power of partnership. So to begin, I'd love to hear about a key lesson that each of you have learned from working in partnership, either with community members, if you are a CF Foundation staff member, or with clinicians and researchers, if you're a community member. Karen, you mentioned some of that financial wellness work, so I'd love to start with you, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. If there's, I suppose, one key insight to share about working with Community Voice members, it's that your expertise when it comes to life with CF holds such incredible power, right? You all are absolutely the experts on life with CF. If there were two things, Leah, if I could share, the other is just how generous you all are with that expertise. Community Voice members have engaged with my team in many different ways, right? From community-wide surveys that Christina talked about before, but also small focus groups, right? Year-long committee work. Just ultimately, know that your voices are heard, your perspectives are influential, and I guess that really just wraps up with a big old thank you to all of you, is my lesson learned.
That thank you is universal. I feel it every time I talk to somebody who works with the community or a community member who is gracious enough to share their time with us. Michelle, could I pass the mic to you?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of similar to what Karen was sharing, but what I learned in working with different partners on different things is that my experience is enough. I used to work in kind of a social work setting, and there's a phrase that we said a lot, which is not about me without me. And so I don't have to be a finance guru or a scientist in order to serve on those kind of committees. My experience really is enough. And that sort of, has helped me learn what it means to be an advocate, and what that can look like. And it really just means showing up with what I've got.
Showing up isn't always easy, but it is so important. Thank you so much, Michelle. Dara, you're next.
Yeah, so this is a great question. One thing that I've learned from the CF community is that no two cases of CF are the same. Everyone has a different story, from how they were diagnosed to their different daily struggles, and everyone has a different perspective. Since there's such a huge variety of experiences of people with living with CF, it's really crucial for us to hear from everyone, so we can really address those broad range of needs of people living with CF. So definitely a lot of variety there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Finally, Will, what can you share with us?
Yeah, to me, the key lesson about partnership is everyone's voice being heard so that all members of the community, patients, CF staff, CF Foundation staff, researchers, clinicians, et cetera, all feel like they are included in the process, and that's where we'll get our best results. And I think it's important to note the individual identities and experiences that each of us have with our voice. And so, for example, I've served in roles of the Adult Advisory Council, as I mentioned, and as one patient, I only have my own lived experience, and I have my identities of being the cis white man, for example, with rare and nonsense mutations, and having been a liver transplant recipient. So for me, properly representing my community means allyship and also spending a lot of time hearing from my peers on their experiences, what's on their mind, and what they want to be strongly advocated for. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thanks so much. I love how each of you have mentioned the importance of hearing from a variety of different perspectives. It really does make a difference. You don't know what somebody else has lived through, what somebody else's lived experience is like, but once you have heard that, it's a lot easier to build all of those considerations into work that you're doing. Another theme that I noticed, both from Michelle and from Will, is this theme of advocacy that you have both mentioned and highlighted. And at the heart of advocacy, you think about the goal being to create positive change. So with that, I'd like to ask, what has been the most significant change that you have seen from community involvement? Will, you've been a longtime community voice member. What sort of changes have you seen?
I love this question because it points to the impact that we all have and the progress that the foundation has helped lead. Uh, to me, I think of also the CF patients that have been involved in the process more and more so being placed with like a Adult Advisory Council. I think of how the three big conferences that we have each year for community members, ResearchCon, FamilyCon, and BreatheCon, all came about because community members were advocating for more spaces to be held where we can gather and share our experiences. And I'd also share that a role that I found specifically from Community Voice was the Clinical Research Executive Committee, where I just ended a 2-year term. And an example of impact or progress that we had from me being there was that I was able to share my thoughts on the research protocols that the executive committee was able to evaluate to be able to hopefully push through, sponsor, and fund research studies. And I was able to share my perspective on, for example, one study that had patients completing daily journal entries to be part of a study. And I explained how I thought that was overly burdensome, and it would, if I was part of the study, I would push back against it, and it would lead to not as strong outcomes. And generally speaking, it was something that was overburdensome. So through my advocacy, I was able to promote the idea that that should be changed, and it was. And the study was able to go forward and is currently enrolling, et cetera. So I was thankful for that opportunity to influence change.
Love that. Love that the researchers listened to your feedback too and made it something that is truly approachable for members of the CF community. That's so important. Speaking of research and research protocols, Dara, I know that's in your wheelhouse. Do you have a change that you'd like to speak to?
Yeah, so building on what Will said, back in 2018, I introduced community viewers to our CFF scientific review process. This was the first time we've actually had communities review proposals at the same time that scientific reviewers review these proposals. The scientific reviewers really embraced and valued the input of the community. Just like Will said, the community feedback was able to bring up things that the scientific reviewers just didn't catch, didn't like pick up on. Something like making someone fast for 8 hours and then expecting them to sit for 3 hours for a study visit, or 12 blood draws in 3 months. Things like that are actually really important to get that feedback from the community prior to a protocol, because we want to see these studies be successful. The other flip side of that is the investigators also get that community feedback. And I want to share just one story where an investigator who got feedback from the community and their proposal was not chosen to be funded. And they went back and forth on whether or not they wanted to resubmit and try again. And the proposal was actually about fatigue, and something that our scientific reviewers didn't really appreciate the need or the desire from the community to have more research related to fatigue. And once the applicant really saw the community's feedback saying how much need and interest there is in this type of research, the applicant actually decided to resubmit and then eventually got funded. So huge impact by the community in that scenario.
I love that. And that's another great example, I think, of the community's needs and priorities really coming through and showing in the research that the foundation funds and helps to support. Thank you so much for that. Karen, I'd love to hear some about your work with the financial wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, I mentioned this idea of committee work just a little bit ago. And in thinking about the change community involvement has had, really highlighting that Financial Wellness Advisory Committee is hands down a terrific example. In a little bit of background, the goal of this committee is really to shape that further exploration of financial wellness in ways that are relevant to people with CF and their loved ones, right? So this 2025 committee is 7 adults with CF, 2 parents of children with CF. We've got a couple of 3 CF clinicians on there, and I am biased. I get to work with them multiple times a month, but this is truly a phenomenal group of human beings. And the things that they are engaging in are really tough, and they're near universal. And they are able to bring their perspectives, that element of humanness, right? That we have this shared humanity among us, even though we all have different experiences. And they're really able, through their materials, to help normalize that cost burden of CF. So they have done a lot of work to create resources, which I'm hoping we'll be able to share a little later. But it's really that expertise that they bring, and our work would be deficient without them.
Thanks so much. And I think that we're actually going to share some of the resources that you've just mentioned here, certainly in our wrap-up notes and possibly in the chat as well. So keep an eye out for some links possibly being dropped in as we go, and we'll send them in a follow-up email later to be sure. Finally, Michelle, you've worked on several committees and in several capacities. Are there any changes that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, so I've only been a part of Community Voice since 2022, but in that time, last 3 years or so, I've seen a huge shift in focus too on making sure that everybody's voice is heard, particularly those from underserved communities in the CF community. So there's been a lot of elevating voices that are underserved in the community. I saw that a lot with some of the awards that I got to review in the Health Equity Science Team Award Committee. And so it's just been this increased focus of making sure that people are included in the conversation, and that intentional inclusion is going to be really impactful in years to come. So I've been excited to see that impact as well.
I'm so glad that comes through. That has definitely been a priority within our programs to make sure that everyone's experience is reflected in the voices that have an influence on the care and research programs. We really want to make sure that folks who have historically not maybe had as much input have the opportunity to do so. So I'm very glad to hear that's coming through. Intentional inclusion absolutely makes a huge difference, both to the overall project and to everyone's personal experience when they take part in a committee, a focus group, whether it's a small or a large seeming piece of the work, every bit of it does matter. And we in Community Voice really do work thoughtfully with project owners to create a welcoming environment where everyone feels like their presence and their input is valued. And we welcome your thoughts, both our panelists and the folks who are here this evening attending. We welcome your thoughts on how we can do that even better. Looking ahead, can you tell us a little more about why you think it's important to engage? What do you think will be the most critical part in the years ahead? And for this, I'll start with Dara.
Keeping me on my toes, I see. So I think for better or worse, the CF community is getting increasingly segmented. And what I mean by that is, you have folks who are on modulators, those who aren't able to tolerate modulators or are ineligible for modulators, those who have persistent GI issues, and those that still continue to struggle with infections and frequent pulmonary exacerbations. I mean, the list could go on and on. And it's really important that we don't lose sight of the breadth of manifestations and the challenges that CF causes. So, funding cutting edge research to address these challenges, the many challenges, is just one way CFF helps people with CF lead long, fulfilling lives, which is really our mission. And we need to continue to listen to the many different needs of everyone in order to meet that mission. So, looking forward, we're going to do a little more listening.
Love that. I've got my ears on. Will?
Yeah, for me, again, it's all about advocacy. I mean, I often think of how lucky I have been to benefit from all those that advocated for me and helped lead to things like new drugs coming out. Like I was born around the time that Pulmozyme was introduced, one of like the core drugs that so many people with CF use every single day. I'm so fortunate to have benefited from the advocacy from those before me, and so I feel like I really need to pay it forward to continue to improve the quality of care for those younger with me in CF, and also benefit, of course, the families and everyone impacted by CF overall. For me, in the years future too, it's extremely critical that we keep our foot on the gas pedal. We're so lucky that people in our community have benefit from big wins like modulators, but of course, many have not. And still, frankly, people die young each year because of CF. And otherwise, there's still a lot of work that people like me doing 2+ hours of breathing treatments every day to, continue to battle are doing. So I can be thankful for the success we've had. Also, very much motivated to continue pushing so that people, regardless of geography or mutations or otherwise, get access to drugs that can be life-changing.
Will, you help keep us motivated and pushing forward too. So thank you for your continued energy on that front. Karen?
Yeah, gosh, thank you, Leah. Thanks, Will, Michelle, Dara. It's really just been a privilege. As I think about this question, many years ago, a person with, or it was a parent of a person with CF, offered a sort of generous explanation to me that in life with CF, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, right? And then come those hoops that are lit on fire. And as I'm looking ahead, I think it's just really important to acknowledge that some of those hoops are truly massive within our community, right? And that interconnectedness that I've sort of been harping on, but I've talked about is really hard to navigate sometimes. But hands down, no one is in this alone, right? You are not alone, and your voice makes a difference. So I continue to be motivated.
And I continue to be grateful to get to be not alone, but to be joined by all of you too. Last but never least for this question, Michelle.
Thanks, Leah. When I thought about this question, I thought about who I was when I joined. So I joined when my son was only 6 months old, and I was really terrified about what life was going to look like. And when I joined Community Voice and also CF Peer Connect, I got the opportunity to interact and see different treatments and things like that were coming along, which I was so grateful for. But the other thing that I got to do that was also something I was grateful for was I got to interact with adults with CF like Will. I didn't get to interact with Will, but it was in that situation. And so I got to interact with other adults who had CF, and it felt like a window opened up where I just couldn't see a future before that. And so it gave me a lot of hope and a lot of gratitude for getting to be a part of it. And like Will, I really like the phrase he uses, which is like keeping our foot on the gas pedal. My son also could not tolerate Trikafta, and so we're in that group of like we really need to keep pushing as well, but not just for us, but for others in the community who don't have access or can't tolerate the medications that are out there. And most importantly is that the voice of every person who is contributing matters. Your voice matters. This community, will not be able to go forward and make the impact it's made unless people continue to show up and share their voice, their experience, and their perspectives as well. So, anyways, I just leave feeling very grateful for everyone who's contributed and for those who will join us. So.
There's that theme of gratitude again. And as we were putting this event together, I know I had the chance to speak with each of you on this call. And thank you directly. And I'm going to thank everyone who's listening in here today. Every interaction that we have, every time I have the privilege of hearing somebody's story, someone's experience, it makes me more and more grateful for the strength of this community. And as Karen mentioned, the generosity of the CF community to share their time and their experience and their wisdom to help everyone else. And I'm so glad to hear that it is helpful to you as well, that it's sort of, I don't know if pays back is the right word, but that it's mutually beneficial. The benefit goes in both directions. So we have the incredible benefit of hearing from you, and hopefully you get to learn about some resources and make some connections that help as well. Before we stop with the panel discussion tonight, I just wanted to invite any of you to share any last thoughts that you'd like, or if anything has come to you in the course of our discussion this evening or over the last few days.
I'll jump in. I have to say, when my kids were first diagnosed, it was overwhelming. But we have the best community that exists, and I don't think we would be where we are today without us. So I want to thank our community for always stepping up and being a big part of what we do, and supporting me and everybody else. So that's what I would like to end with. A big thank you.
I can add that I often like to think about how the CF community, the foundation, et cetera, and how we all support people with CF and their families. It takes a village is the phrase I'm really looking for. The caregiver that's, directly helping the person with CF to be able to go battle through a difficult time. Somebody at the foundation that's involved in, community support, putting on events like this or otherwise doing things like community voice. The CF Foundation overall is a very large organization that just has even people just working on accounting or maybe are involved in maintaining the, Bethesda office, et cetera. It's a collective movement that we're all a part of to eventually improve the quality of care for CF patients. And I'm very thankful that as a community, we all recognize the effort and time that we all put in unique ways toward our collective goal.
I want to thank all four of our panelists, Dara, Karen, Michelle, Will. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion this evening. Thanks for sharing your time, your energy, your experiences, and perspective. I am proud to be part of a community with you. Thanks for highlighting the impact that these partnerships have on research and care projects and the impact that these opportunities have had on you as well. I'll now pass the mic to my colleague Ijoma. Like myself, she also serves as a community engagement project lead, and she's going to tell you about some upcoming opportunities to engage through community voice and how you can learn about new opportunities as well as updates from past work. So, Ijoma.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so I just want to say a big thank you to our panelists for that inspiring discussion. I'm excited to share different ways you can engage and get involved. So again, following up on those powerful stories of partnership and impact you just heard, like the incredible work of the Financial Wellness Advisory Committee, and the work in the clinical research space, I just want to start with a simple and powerful message that I've heard throughout the course of this town hall, which is your input truly makes a difference. Over the past hour, you've heard about a wide range of projects. This graphic on the slide represents that broad spectrum. So on one end, you have opportunities like large surveys and focus groups, and on the other, there are more involved opportunities like short-term recruitments and even ongoing committees and work groups. So whether you have some minutes to complete a survey or a longer span of time to commit to a longer-term project, there is a place for you. We vet each project to ensure they will have a positive impact on the CF community and your contributions will be heard. On the next slide, I'll give you a preview of some future opportunities. So we have a handful of projects that are ongoing or will be recruiting soon. The CF Foundation's Lung Transplant Consortium Steering Committee is actively recruiting this month for an adult with CF who's undergone a lung transplant. In October, there's a committee recruitment for adults with CF and caregivers to be a part of a health equity team, and an interview opportunity for parents on CF and male fertility. In November, the CF Foundation is recruiting for their clinical research committee, and a research team is studying modulator effects throughout pregnancy, and they're convening a community advisory board to support that study. And lastly, next year, there'll be a committee recruitment on the topic of mental health and prioritizing research in that space. So this slide is just a quick preview of some of the topics and opportunities to come. In the next couple of slides, I'll share how you can access more information about these upcoming opportunities and how you can read about your impact. So you can read about upcoming opportunities through our Share Your Voice webpage. The Share Your Voice webpage is a great way to preview some opportunities, and this webpage displays the topic of the project, who can apply, and the deadline of when you can join Community Voice to receive notice. So you'll even see the opportunities that I just mentioned, such as the Lung Transplant Consortium Steering Committee and the parent interviews on CF and male fertility interviews. This webpage is also shareable, so if you know individuals who could benefit from having access to this information, feel free to share the link widely. So we talked a lot about the amazing impact that the community has had over the years, and I'd also like to share ways that you can read about it. So we have our monthly results update emails. We typically send these newsletters toward the end of the month. They capture key project updates, tangible project results, and additional opportunities for engagement. The monthly results update emails are available in English and Spanish. And then, of course, we send an annual impact report that captures several themes, projects, and program demographics. And this year in particular, of course, our annual report contains a special tenure section. And this resource is also available in English and Spanish. So encourage you all to read through that to see all the impact throughout the years and in 2024 as well, in 2025. So I just want to highlight for you all, and again, if you have any questions of any of the information that we shared today, feel free to drop any questions in the chat, or you can reach out to us anytime at communityvoice@cff.org. You can reach us at that email address, ask us any questions about projects, let us know if you're not receiving any emails or project invitations, anything that we need to troubleshoot on our end. And of course, there's always opportunities for you to share your feedback about the program, and just want to bring your attention to an upcoming end of year survey that we plan on sending out. Lastly, to round us out, I want to share that there are other ways to get involved and engage, and we actually have our outreach and inclusion team that's available to assist in sharing the projects that I shared today and any other way that you would like to engage with the foundation, including support and connection opportunities. So just wanted to highlight some of those opportunities on this slide. So if you're interested in peer mentorship, we have a CF Peer Connect team. The CF Peer Connect is a one-on-one peer support opportunity, so you can connect with someone who's been through a similar experience to you. We have CF Circles. That is a small group peer-led virtual discussion around highly specific topics and experiences. There's actually an upcoming CF Circle on pain management that will take place this Tuesday, September 30th at 7 p.m. So again, we'll provide the link so that you can check that out. And then we also have, as part of the foundation's suite of support and connection opportunities, BreatheCon and ResearchCon, which are national virtual events to connect, share, and learn from others in the CF community. So with that, I'll actually pass it along to Caitlin. Let me stop sharing my screen for a moment. So thank you, Caitlin. I'll pass it to you to round us out, but I just want to say that I've had a big smile on my face listening to all the presentations and panel discussions thus far. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll feel free to address them. And you could always reach out to us through email. So I'll pass it to you, Caitlin.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ajoma. And just got really excited seeing all those projects lined up in a row that we have coming up. So lots of good things on the horizon. Just want to say thank you everyone for attending. We hope you leave today feeling proud of the impact that you've had and excited for the opportunities to come. We are so grateful for the time and energy and lived experiences that you all bring to so many different areas. We can't wait to see the impact you have over the next 10 years. If you aren't yet a Community Voice member and you'd like to, we'd love if you consider joining and taking advantage of the opportunity to partner with some of the great people you got to meet tonight from the panel. There's many, many more like them out there in our program. We're very fortunate. So look out for a follow-up email with links to all of the resources we talked about today and a recording of this session. As Ajoma mentioned, as always, please feel free to get in touch with us with any questions or feedback that you have. And maybe if you feel inspired to, please help us spread the word about Community Voice. We want to make sure as many people as possible have the opportunity to shape CF research, care, and beyond over the next 10 years. So thank you again, wishing you all a good rest of your week and happy 10 years to Community Voice.